Teachers, what is the worst thing you've seen a student do? A different type of bad than most of these. I was a teacher at a poor inner city school. I had a lot of wonderful students, but some difficult ones. One was the worst, clearly bright, but was always sleeping through class, acting up, and never doing homework. I lived about 30 minutes away. One night, I stopped by the local Wawa after a night out with friends. It was at least 11:30 p.m. and I was already dreading the early morning drive to school. And who should be checking me out but my own problem student? He was working late to make money for his family, and then getting home at 1:00 a.m. or later before heading into school on 4 to 5 hours of sleep. He was a smart kid, really smart. I hope things worked out for him, but I can't help but wonder what would have happened if he'd been allowed to have a childhood and focus on his education. A teacher I had in high school told a similar story. In the least amount of words, the kid was always falling asleep in class, and when she confronted him about it, she found out he was staying up all night protecting his mother from his abusive father. Early years educator specializing in children with SEN, special educational needs. Eating feces, no competition. Seeing a child chewing their own feces is something that stays with you. Having to try and hook it all out of their mouth with your finger whilst they bite you is something you forcibly forget. Children with complex sensory issues, particularly those with hyposensitivity to smell and taste, will often seek out particularly strong smells and tastes, and things that we find disgusting are not to them and instead are stimulating, combined with the delays to their development, which means they are still likely to be at the stage of exploration, where everything is tested in the mouth. This can obviously lead to situations that are very unpleasant to us, edited to add clarity and further explanation. Stab another student in the back of the head with a pencil. Went in right at the base of the skull. Luckily, it didn't hit anything important and just needed 3 stitches, but it was deep enough that it stayed in before the doctors took it out. There was a loud pop and a flash in the back corner of the classroom. I asked the student sitting there what happened. She said it was firecrackers. I sent her to the office. While she was still in the office, I realized the electrical outlets in the room didn't work. At that point, another student fessed up that the student sent to the office had put a pair of scissors in the outlet. I'm not sure why that student thought it was better to lie and claim she was doing fireworks inside the school. I was teaching for 3 months in a terrible inner city school in London. Terrible, because the school's management was super ridiculous and refused protecting or standing up for their teachers. I quit after 3 months. At the end of the first term, the school begged me to stay and promised me a pay increase. Here are some highlights. A female 15-year-old student pulled out a used tampon from her vagina during class and chucked it on my colleague's female face, telling her to shut up. A 16-year-old female student spat on my face. The school's head teacher put her on detention for an hour as punishment, while the student was laughing at me saying, "You see, all I got is a free lesson now, buzz off." The school refused to suspend her and let me know that if I call the police to charge her with assault, they will support the student, and refused to acknowledge the attack to protect the school's reputation. A male student smeared his feces on a huge wall in the boys' toilet, writing offensive words with it. A group of 6 to 7 students, 16 to 17 years old, surrounded a male colleague, pushing him from one to another, took his glasses, very high prescription, rendering him practically blind, breaking them, then beating him and kicking him. The school refused to investigate, as he couldn't identify any of the students. He couldn't see the faces without his glasses. He quit the school the same day. This place was a nightmare. When I was teaching preschool, I had a little girl, between 3 to 4, walk up to another girl who was sitting on the rug reading a book, grab her by the hair and slam her head into the wall. They hadn't been interacting in any way prior. When I asked her why she did it, she said she wanted her to know it hurts. I was talking to a kid about Pokemon one day. During their lunchtime, I'm the band director, and a lot of band kids come to the band room for lunch. We were having a good time. He's a great tuba player, and I tell him I can't wait to see him tomorrow. He took a rope and hung himself in the last period of the day by kicking a desk out from under him. Luckily, the teacher he was with was able to somehow get to him, but I ran down in time hearing the screaming and was in time to see him hanging there as others tried to support him, enough to keep him from dying. Kid was gotten down, but that was awful. It's so hard to tell sometimes, even when you're right there with them, that before they try it. It gets very hot here in the warmer months, and so the school put out those big containers for water for everyone. Well, one student was caught peeing into a bag and dumping it into the containers, adding, "Student was 11 or 12. My wife is an elementary teacher and has a kid this year that likes to slip under their desk and lick toes. We live in a warm state, and they all think he will grow up to be a creeper. My wife has a few. This is only one during class. One girl was sitting with her hands in her lap shaped like a bowl. Upon further inspection, I noticed she was collecting her spit in her hands, said her name, made eye contact. She drinks it and wipes her hands on her shirt. She didn't make a move to ask to wash hands, so I sent her to. That reminds me of one. Right in the middle of COVID, kids were wearing masks in school. They were not good at this. One little girl, 6 years old at the time, wearing her mask under her nose, and then she sneezed. Huge globs of boogers, full-on booger bubbles, hanging out of her nose. She uses her mask to wipe it all up, then pulled her mask out a bit, and took a good look at the collection of snot she had scraped up into her mask, and then licked it all up. I will never forget this. It's a three-way tie for me. Student 1. Steal my class pet, a fish that I really loved. Claimed to flush it down the toilet. Another student said they gave it away to a kid on the street in a water bottle. Student 2. Raised their hand in a fist like they were going to hit me. When I was visibly pregnant to see me flinch, they repeated this gesture 3 times. I wasn't their teacher. I just asked them to stop banging on random doors and go to class. Student 3. Put his finger in his throat and forced himself to throw up on my floor. I asked him why he just did that. He said to go to the nurse. Why didn't he just ask though? Why start with forcing yourself to puke on my classroom carpet? I quit teaching. The kids, their parents, and the admin are raising a generation that isn't going to understand consequences. We are creating sociopaths. I also grew tired of parents screaming at me for the dumbest reasons. I didn't allow phones out in my classes. Another wanted me to pay for her internet at home. And finally, I was not paid enough, yet I was expected to subsidize the education system. What's the worst thing a student has done? Comment below. Thanks for watching. Like the video.